Hey guys, it's Julian, and today I'm going to be showing you the much requested how to make Copenhagen Techno. As usual, you get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets, all of that stuff in this video in the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there, because it's already available and has been since yesterday. Yeah, let's get started. So, right off the bat, we're at 140 BPM. As you know, a lot of times this style is called kind of like fast techno or something like that. The style is definitely a bit faster than more standard techno. You know, more standard techno BPM would be like 128, 130, that kind of range. But putting this up to 140, it gives it a lot more of like a fast, kind of like old school trancey influence. So that's the first thing. Definitely, if you're making a track in the style, 140 BPM is the way to go. The first sound we've got here is the lead, which sounds like this. So here are the notes. This one's actually pretty simple. It's just playing this thing in F minor. Like you can see, we got F, then we got the minor third, G sharp, we got the fifth, C, we have a ninth up there, G, and then another C. So it's all notes in the scale. And you can see it's just really simple, you know, just following this kind of like energetic pattern. With these style of leads, it's not just about the notes, you know. Obviously, knowing the music theory and knowing minor scales and all that kind of stuff is very useful, but it's also about how you put it together and how the rhythm is working. Because it needs to have a lot of energy, and that's how you get that. For the sound on this one, it's made using analog. What we have here, as you can see, it's just two saw waves an octave apart. I've got a bit of white noise as well. And a little detail here is on the second oscillator, I actually have this LFO. So I'll turn off the first one so you can hear it. There's without the LFO. And then with it. So as you can hear, it adds a lot to like, you know, just making the sound a lot more exciting and more interesting to hear. I've got this going into a low-pass filter, which has an envelope on it, and that's also being key-tracked. So what the key tracking does is essentially, if you think about it like when you play a low note on the keyboard, it plays a low note, and when you play a high note, it plays a high note. This is key tracking, and in this case, we're just doing it with the filter. So the lower you are, the lower the filter frequency is, and the higher you are, the higher the filter frequency is. I've also got an LFO on the filter, just kind of slightly moving it. Yeah, then we got the amp envelope set like this, and then the last thing here inside the synth is just a bit of vibrato. You can see I've got that turned up quite a bit to really give it that kind of trancey sound. And then we've got a bit of unison, making this kind of like a super saw, and that is it for inside of the synth. After that, we've just got a bit of chorus to spread the sound out a little bit, as well as a bit of echo to give it some more space and kind of like a little bit more energy as well. This helps to kind of fill in the spaces. If I turn this off and then turn it on, you can hear what that does. And yeah, then after that, we've got a bit of reverb, giving it even more space, as you can imagine. Reverb is pretty important with this kind of sound. You know, if you want like a big kind of super saw like this, if I turn this reverb off, you can hear it's not as big sounding. So yeah, after that, we've got a bit of drum bus to fatten the sound up. You can see I've got this up actually pretty strongly, and I've got the transients up quite a bit as well. This is a really great way to not just make the sound fatter, but it also brings out the echo and the reverb a lot more. Like if I put this before those two, you don't hear them as prominently, but when we put it after, it kind of like glues it all together and makes it all just kind of like this big, you know, very meaty sound. After that, we just got a bit of EQ8, cutting out the low end as well as boosting the high end a little bit. And then I have this auto pan here doing a sort of like simulated sidechain. So I talk about this a lot in my videos, but essentially I'm using this the same way you would use LFO Tool or Kickstart or any of those plugins or Volume Shaper, any of those kinds of things, except this is just with an Ableton native effect. So all it is it's the auto pan. And you can see I've got the phase down at 0, and so it's just affecting the volume. And then I just have it on an inverted saw wave, so it kind of goes up like that, and then I've got it on quarter notes. And the reason why we do this is because if you sidechain it to this kick, like, that has a lot going on there, right? There's all that rumble on there. It's just going to be ducked out of the way the whole time. But if you do it this way, it sounds like it's being sidechained. And there's not a whole lot of this on here either, but it sounds like it's being sidechained without having to have all that, like, you know, rumble messing up the sidechain. And yeah, that is it for the lead. The next sound we got going on here is the kick, which sounds like this. So this is a pretty standard sort of like hard techno kick. I'll show you. Here's the sample we started with. As you can see, it's just like a 909 style kick, and then I've just brought it in here, and then I've got it going through this rack here. So this is doing the rumble. I'll turn this off. There we go. So the way this works is we have two chains. I have a dry chain, which has nothing on it. That's just the punch of the kick. And then we have a chain with the rumble. And so the way we're doing this here is I'll turn everything off and just kind of break it down from the start for you. So the first thing here is the delay. You can hear that's what gives us that repeating sound. I have it on dotted eighth notes. You can play around with different settings. You can get a lot of different sounds. Like you can do that. You can even do that. But dotted eighth notes was good here because it kind of gives it like a like that kind of rhythm. And then the next thing after that is we distort it. And you can hear this really brings out the low end and makes it a lot more rumbly. It also makes the high end a little bit crunchy, but we're going to get rid of that with this auto filter after that. So this is where we filter down the sound so it's just a rumble. And there you go. You get the rumble and the kick layered together. And then the other key here is I do have the side chain to the dry kick, which you can hear makes it kind of fit in a little bit better. And then I also have this EQ8, which is cutting around here. And I'll show you if I turn this off and we put on a spectrum. You can see this rumble is hitting a lot around 100 hertz, and that's not really what you want because that's where the punch of the kick is happening, so it's going to kind of get in the way of the punch. So I just did a very strong cut here at 100 and then boosted the low end. And there we go. Now the rumble is more like the bass, and we have it very separate from the punch. So then after that rack, I just have a few effects. The first thing here is this drum bus. This really helps to glue the rumble and the punch together and make them sound like one very powerful kick. Here's without this. And then with it, so you can hear how this really helps to just bring it all out and make the kick hit that much harder while gluing the rumble and punch together. I've got the transients up on that. I've also got the boom up a little bit. It's tuned to F. Like I said, we're in F minor. And yeah, then after that, the only other effect on here is just this EQ8. This is just kind of focusing the kick. So here's without it. And then with it, you can hear it just takes the sound and kind of cleans it up and focuses a little bit more on what we want. Because a lot of times with this drum bus and with all the different methods we're using to make this fat, it can tend to add a little bit of muddiness. So I've just cut that out at like 220 hertz there. And then I boosted the low end just to make it even stronger. And yeah, that is it for the kick. The only other thing to really talk about with the kick are like these little things here. Those little do at the end of every 4 bars. That's something I noticed in a lot of these tracks. Again, it's got a very like old school ravey, trancey kind of influence with the style. So definitely doing stuff like that really helps. And yeah, that is it for the kick. Next thing that we have here is this percussion, which sounds like this. So this is really subtle. If I play this with the hi-hat, you'll be able to hear it a little bit more. So you can hear this is just playing on every other 16th note essentially. Here you can see I've got the velocity staggered a little bit. And yeah, this is like a really simple sound. It's just this little percussion. I'll play you the original sample. There we go, kind of like a rim shot type of sound. And then I've bandpassed it. And then I'm kind of going through a little bit of chorus as well as some drum bus to kind of fatten it up, and then just a high pass filter to cut out the low end at the end. And yeah, this is really simple. This just kind of adds a little bit more dimension to your drums because now it's not just but now there's like this thing underneath that. And it adds to the energy a lot as well, I've noticed. And yeah, after that we've got this little operator layer which sounds like this. So this is another thing really adding to the energy. All this is it's just some white noise, which you can see I've got the envelope set like this, so it's kind of like. And then I'm just got it going through a bandpass filter. And then I've got it going through an erosion and a high pass filter. And then this is just adding like a little bit more of kind of like some flow over top of all this percussion. Like if I turn this off and then turn it on, you can hear it's adding a lot more energy. And in the overall track, you can really hear the difference as well. Like I'll turn this off and play it, and then we'll turn it on. There we go. Forget my CPU there. But yeah, so you can hear this really adds a lot to the high end and just kind of making the overall track sound a lot more energetic and exciting. After that, we have this first hi-hat, which sounds like this. This one's really simple. It's just playing on the upbeats. The main thing here to keep in mind is the type of sound. Like I noticed when I was listening to a lot of references for the style, you know, they're not using like the standard big like open 909 hi-hats. It's something a little bit sharper and more hard hitting like this. Yeah, after that we have the second percussion, which sounds like this. So there's just a little bit more percussion in here, just kind of adding some like... You can hear what that's adding. It's just kind of adding a little bit more dimension to the drums and making it so it's not just like the main upfront elements. After that, we have the snare, which sounds like this. So with this, basically I started with this sample. And then we just put it in here. It's on the 2 and 4. And then I've got some reverb with a pretty high pre-delay on it and then a drum bus. So the reverb with the pre-delay is how you get that ravey kind of like snare, you know? Like, I'm sure you've heard this type of snare in a lot of loops, for example. Like, it just really has that, like... And the drum bus is just fattening the whole thing up and making it hit a bit harder. Yeah, after that, the last drum that we have here is the second hi-hat, which sounds like this. So it's just doing straight 16th notes, you know, just... the whole way through. Really simple. Yeah, and then I have all of the drums / percussion in a group together. This is, you know, a great way to really tie it all together and make everything feel like it's all kind of in the same place. Here's with no group processing. And then with it, so you can hear not only how it's making everything come together a lot more and you know, feel a lot more together, but it's also fattening everything up and making it a lot stronger in the mix. So the first thing here is I've just got a bit of drum bus, just fatten it up. As we've seen throughout this whole project file, drum bus is a great way to fatten your sounds up. Like, you can really put it on anything. Of course, here we're literally using it on our drum bus, but you can put it on almost anything to glue it together and make it fatter. And then the only other effect I have on there is just an EQ8 boosting a little bit of high end just to make the percussion a bit sharper. Here's without it. And then with it, and yeah, that is it for the drums. And that is also going to be it for this video, guys. So, I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the full project file and samples and MIDI and presets, all of that stuff from this video in the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check that it's already available. Thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.